She walked into the bank with a cloth bag folded neatly under her arm, the kind of bag people used decades ago before leather wallets and designer purses became a status symbol. Her steps were soft, humble, unnoticed, until the moment she approached the counter. The teller frowned immediately, judging her before she even spoke. When she said she wanted to deposit her savings, he laughed under his breath, loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. "Mom, deposits start from the main counter. This line is for large transactions." The snickers from customers stung, but she remained calm. What none of them knew was that the simple woman they mocked was married to a man whose signature could shut the entire bank down. And in just a few minutes, her billionaire husband would walk through those glass doors and change every life in that building, including the teller who humiliated her. Before we begin, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Tales and Turns. And tell us in the comments below, where in the world are you watching from? Your support means everything. She stood at the counter quietly, hands clasped together, while the teller continued offering her fake smiles dipped in condescension. His name tag read Brandon. He tapped his fingers impatiently as she explained that she wished to deposit a portion of her personal earnings, money she had saved from small craft sales and part-time work. Instead of respecting her effort, Brandon leaned forward and whispered just loud enough, "Maybe try the ATM outside. It's more appropriate." A few people smirked behind her. She swallowed hard, not because of the insult, but because it reminded her of countless moments in life where she had been dismissed for looking like nobody. As she quietly placed the cloth bag on the counter, Brandon lifted it with exaggerated care, expecting a few crumpled bills, but when he opened it, his eyebrows shot up. It was filled with neatly rolled bundles of cash, old, saved, cherished. Yet instead of being impressed, he scoffed. "This? You brought this here? You know we have standards, right?" His voice carried across the room, attracting curious glances. The woman lowered her head, not ashamed of her savings, but overwhelmed by how easily people mistook humility for worthlessness. She didn't raise her voice, didn't defend herself, didn't explain who she truly was. She simply said, "Please deposit what you can." Brandon called the manager, clearly amused and wanting to share the joke. The manager arrived with an air of superiority, barely looking at her as he inspected the bag. "We can't accept this amount in this condition," he announced, before adding a snide comment about people who don't understand banking practices. The woman watched them both silently, her calmness unsettling them more than any argument would have. What they didn't know was that her husband, Elias Rowan, was the majority shareholder of this very banking chain. And he wasn't just a billionaire, he was known for walking into any branch at any time without warning, inspecting how customers were being treated. As fate would have it, Elias walked into the bank at that very moment. He was on a quiet visit, unannounced, dressed simply, unnoticed just like her. When he spotted his wife standing alone at the counter with a strained expression on her face, something inside him shifted. He approached slowly, hearing the tail end of Brandon's belittling tone. The woman turned slightly, her eyes widening in relief when she recognized her husband. In that second, Brandon's mocking grin froze, because Elias's presence carried a gravity that silenced the entire room. "Is there a problem here?" Elias asked, softly, though there was steel beneath his voice. Brandon straightened immediately, assuming he was a regular wealthy customer, yet still failing to connect the dots. The manager stepped in, eager to impress, explaining that they were dealing with a small issue. The woman opened her mouth to speak, but Elias gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "Can you walk me through what happened?" he asked her, his voice full of concern. Not anger, not humiliation, just love. and that alone made the entire staff swallow their pride. The manager began his version of events, dressing it with excuses, but Elias raised a hand for silence. Then he addressed his wife directly. "Did they disrespect you?" She hesitated for a moment, not wanting to cause trouble. But he knew her too well. He knew the weight she carried from years of being overlooked. So she nodded quietly. That single gesture pierced the atmosphere like a blade. Elias turned to the staff, and his tone changed completely. "I'm Elias Rowan," he said, pulling out his identification. The moment his name hit the air, the manager's knees nearly buckled. Brandon turned pale as chalk. Customers began whispering, realizing they were witnessing something enormous. Elias wasn't a man who raised his voice often. But today, his disappointment was louder than any shout. He asked the entire staff why any customer, had been treated with disrespect. He questioned their standards, their training, their humanity. "My wife came here as any person would," he said. "She came with honesty, trust, and dignity, and you repaid her with humiliation." Brandon tried to apologize, but Elias stopped him. "Save it. You weren't sorry until you realized who she was." The manager tried to blame misunderstanding, but Elias shot down every excuse with calm authority. Instead of firing them on the spot, as everyone expected, Elias did something that stunned the room. He said the bank would undergo full staff retraining, and he would personally oversee it. But Brandon would face a different path: community service at a financial education center funded by Elias himself. "Maybe if you meet people who fight every day to survive," Elias said, "you'll learn the value of humility." Then, turning to his wife, he took her bag of savings, placed it gently on the counter, and said, "Deposit every dollar. She earned this with honor." As the staff scrambled to assist, the mood in the bank shifted completely. Customers watched the simple woman with newfound respect. Brandon's arrogance had crumbled into regret. The manager's pride melted into nervous apology. And Elias stood beside his wife, holding her hand as though reminding her, and everyone else, that true worth was never measured by appearance, clothing, or the size of a deposit. It was measured by character, kindness, and the quiet strength she had shown even in the face of humiliation. When they left the bank, hand in hand, she looked up at him and whispered, "You didn't have to do all that." Elias smiled softly. "I know," he said, "but you've spent your whole life being humble. Today, it was the world's turn to recognize you." She leaned into him, tears gathering in her eyes, not because of the spectacle, but because of the unwavering love behind it. And somewhere inside that bank, a lesson lingered like a permanent shadow. Never judge a person by what they carry in their hands, only by what they carry in their heart.